All right, good morning. Welcome back to the Daybreak show, excuse me, on this 26th day of July 2021. My name is Sam Gituku, and I want to introduce the panel that we have in studio. We have Nelson Koech, the Member of Parliament for Belgut constituency. Karibu sana to the show. We have Governor Lee Kinyanjui from Nakuru County. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
Edwin Sifuna, Secretary General of ODM. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
And we are shortly expecting to be joined by Senator Isaac Mwaura to continue with this conversation. And I just want to begin by looking at what's in the main, or rather the front pages of the two dailies. Fresh hurdles as schools reopen. This is the story on the front page of the Daily Nation. You know that today is the day that the learners at all levels of basic education start to go back to school after quite a very short break. Or was it about a week or so? So parents have been dealing with this situation of learners getting to the second level of education at such a short notice, and by the time December is here, they'll have gone through 2 terms of the academic year of 2021 in a bid of the Ministry of Education to recover the time lost due to COVID-19 situation. And so be sure to be covering the stories of what's going on in the back-to-school arena. Then CJ Koome. Why Koome wants court to drop the case against Uhuru in their joint grounds of opposition dated June 14, 2021. CJ and JSC have said the petition filed by Katiba Institute is bad in law, and that story is given in detail on the back page of the Daily Nation. As CJ had earlier said, independence of judiciary was under threat. The Daily Nation is summing it as a U-turn. CJ Koome wants case on the rejected judges dismissed. And of course, very interesting to read the details. CJ and President of the Supreme Court, Martha Koome, during the East African Court of Justice meeting on validation of strategic plan at Sarova Pan-Africa in Nairobi last week is the picture that has been captured there on the back page of the Daily Nation. Then you'll be in a position to read what those details look like. Then on the front page of the Standard, Jubilee night talks to clip Ruto party. In a 5-hour meeting in Nairobi, nearly 30 MPs raised concerns over the president's party's dwindling fortunes and resolved to start campaigns to reconnect with members and check the DP's UDA. The story is on page 6 that you see. In a 5-hour meeting held at the City Hotel, the MPs engaged in candid conversations on the party's dwindling fortunes. And just a touch and go, are you aware of this, Governor Lee Kinyanjui, since this is your party, talking about a meeting to ensure that the party comes back? What's going on to ensure, especially coming hot on the heels of the Kiambaa defeat?
I think it is true that every political unit requires to rejuvenate itself heading to the next election. And I think Jubilee is not any different. There are issues that need to be corrected before the next general election. And I think I want to confirm that it's true the meeting is there, and we have a lot of hopes that we should be able to get where we want to be. Yes.
And Nelson Koech, what are your reflections on what has really happened to the Jubilee Party at such a time and these efforts to rejuvenate it?
Is it not funny that a huge party that was Jubilee is at this moment limping, just hardly 12 months to a general election? A party that has a president, a party that has a majority in parliament, both in National Assembly and in the Senate, a party that has most of the members of MCAs across the country. And then now it is strategizing on how to come back together. I think it's way too late. There's so much that happened in Jubilee that forced many of us to step out of the party. How you will reinvite the people that you've sent out is something that I don't see coming. You have an exiting president. The team that is already there is infighting. You can hear some are threatening Murade, someone to, my friend here, Governor Lee wants the exit of Tuju. There's a lot that is going on, hardly a year to an election. I think Jubilee is totally unprepared this time round. Jubilee is on its deathbed, if you asked me. And I don't see it being rejuvenated to compete with parties like UDA and ODM.
And what are your reflections? Because we are in that season, because in the National Super Alliance, a lot of infighting, or is it? And of course the conversations, including what we had in the news earlier on of one Moses Wetangula talking about the resources that are supposed to go to the political parties. What are your reflections at such a time, a year to the election?
Yeah, I think as Washimoko H puts it, it is that season when people begin preparations to be able to compete effectively in the elections. We don't begrudge anyone for making plans, you know, to put themselves in a good place where they can compete in 2022. The recriminations in Jubilee are things we have seen even in ODM whenever there's an election loss. There is a lot of blame apportionment when something like what happened in Kiambaa happens. And I read Kofi Annan's book. He says during his time as SG of the UN, he always believed SG to stand for scapegoat. So you can see they are going for Tuju's neck. It happens even with us. Whenever there's a problem like what happened in Msambweni, people want to see Sifuna's head on a platter. It happens. So I'm sure that those discussions will continue, and it can only result in the party finding back, you know, retracing its roots to where it can perform a bit better in subsequent elections. As to what our brothers in NASA are doing, I think Wetangula put it very well, that in fact what is happening now is just looking for a burial site for the coalition. And you know, in African culture, usually when somebody dies, there's a Nairobi committee, and there's the upcountry committee. Wetangula is in the upcountry committee, where you actually look for the actual grave site. Here in Nairobi, we are discussing about distribution of the estate of the deceased. So it's true that there are discussions regarding this question of money. They have put it such that it is the only thing, and that once it is sorted out, they will leave. So we in ODM are very eager to put that question behind us. In all fairness, because this matter now is being handled by my party leader, out of respect for him, we don't want to, especially those of us in mid-level management who have had an attempt to resolve the question but we got stuck, we would like that we give opportunity for those discussions between my party leader, Honorable Raila Odinga, and Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, who is essentially an agent not only for Wiper, but also for Ford Kenya and ANC and the other parties. So those discussions are going on. But I can report here that there's a lot of progress that has been made on this question of resource sharing. I am very happy, and I want to say this on TV. I am very happy and humbled by what Kalonzo has done, because talking, you cannot replace talking, Sam. When people sit down to discuss matters, because for us, we have always said that we are welcome to be persuaded. From a reading of the coalition agreement, we didn't see what basis they had on claiming this money from ODM. I am very happy that even from their side, there has been a climb down. Now they acknowledge that indeed we don't get any money from the presidential vote, that they are not entitled to money that we receive from the votes that we received, our candidates received in the election. They have given an interpretation of one clause that says they deserve a share because of the contribution to the strength of the coalition. Now there is a lot of legal argument there, but we have gotten to a point where we are convinced that it is no longer just about the law. People can sit down and also in spite of what is in black and white, they can invoke other things, extraneous matters like long-standing relationships, love and affection. So they'll probably get something out of love and affection.
So SG Sifuna, do you know how much you will be going to these parties, and is it backdated to 2018, or it's just starting this year?
It's very simple math. You know, we know how the amount is arrived at. They do a total of all the votes that you've received, and then they apportion the money depending on the number of votes for all the candidates. So we remove the presidential vote because we don't get any money for that. We remove a bulk of the money like for the governors and for the members of the county assembly, because they are talking about the strength of the coalition in parliament. So if you look at the figure for the amount that we received because of our members of parliament, it is almost 10 million votes out of the 15 million votes. So you create a ratio there, and then you multiply it by the amount of money. Yeah, so
it's just for this year, for this financial year?
At least for the years when they can claim with your friends, from 2017, 2018,
Do you still have
2018
that
and 2019. We don't have it, of course, we spend the money, but we can always find it. We can always get it from other sources.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, very interesting there. And I want us now to make progress and talk about what has been going on over the past 1 week, and beginning with a meeting that was at the coast. Remember Raila Odinga and a host of ODM leaders that was also joined by the majority leader in the National Assembly, that is Amos Kimunya. They were meeting on Eid Baraza. Listen.
Mimi sijawahi kuona vituko ambaye nimeona mwaka huu. Yani nyinyi muko radhi mumuangushe mtu wenu mwenyewe alafu muwe wafuasi. Do you know what it takes? Do you know what it takes kujenga uongozi?
We need to have our presidential candidate announced as soon as possible. Na mimi najua ya kuwa mikakati tayari yashaweza kuanza kuzungumzwa.
Kama sio Wycliffe Oparanya ni Hassan Joho. Kama si Hassan Joho ni Raila Amolo Odinga. Kama si Raila Amolo Odinga ni Hassan Joho.
Right, and let me begin with you, SG, once again, because you're the Secretary General of the party that Hassan Joho is the deputy party leader. What is the thinking? Abdul Somad says that you need to resolve this question of who will be the presidential candidate in a month's time. I remember there's a time, the deadline was 31st of March 2021 to have those interested in being presidential candidates to table their papers. How long should the country wait?
I don't think really the question of a presidential candidate is as urgent as you want to put it. What we are focused on right now is to prepare the entire party for purposes of the election. There's a lot of things to do. You know that we launched the membership drive to try and give opportunity to people who have been unable to join, probably because of financial challenges, to be able to join. You know, we waived the membership fee. There is the question of the grassroots elections. I can see some reports about some happenings in some of the counties regarding that, because there's a lot of you know, jitters on the ground, because there still exist gaps in the leadership of the party. So, for instance, this week we have scheduled a meeting of the National Executive Committee, and I am sure that some of these issues will be debated, and we have always given you in the media briefs about what is discussed. So you don't take too much, you don't read too much into things that people say on the podium. Of course, politicians...
But they're your members.
Yes, and we don't gag them. I mean, when you give your member a microphone, they are free to express themselves. But decisions of the party are reached at during meetings of the organs of the party, and we always brief you about those discussions. Yeah.
Oh, okay, and joining us now is Senator Isaac Mwaura. Karibu sana to the show. And as we talk about this question of the alliances that are being built ahead of the election, there are some people that have argued that no party was formed more than a year to the election that went ahead to win the presidential vote. What are your reflections, knowing the pressure that is within ODM, a party that you were once in?
I think some is a dishonesty because when CORD was formed in 2013, the idea was to have Raila Odinga run still on ODM, but when it came to sharing money, Edwin Sifuna will not tell you ODM has been very selfish, because now that is supposed to be apportioned to ODM alone. So the quarrel that you see my friend Osotsi and others complaining bitterly is because they cannot trust Raila again, because they know eventually when they win or lose, they will not get the money. And political money, political parties fund the monies that are there, which is a very huge chunk of our ordinary shareable revenue, some, is supposed to make political parties to be public entities. But you can see they are still run as private entities masquerading as public goods. So basically, coalitions have to address this major issue from ab initio, especially because our laws do not provide for a special purpose vehicle that would be called a coalition other than a political party. Because political parties are the only means through which you can get power through, legally. So it's a framework that we need to maybe agree. Do you create, an entity, you say like a company or, an association of sorts that then has got power to sue and be sued, because if then you just have one political party sponsoring the candidate of a coalition of political parties, then it runs the risk. But at the same time, I also want to say, we have had two scenarios where we have two mega parties that were cobbled up into, largely, alliances that were here to form, political parties. So if ODM of 2007 was a coupling, no, actually starting with NAC of 2002, it brought together NAK and LDP into a party, but it still broke up 3 years later. ODM of 2007, again, the same was repeated. It broke up into URP, UDF, and WIPA. And now, again, when you come to Jubilee Party, really, which was a masterstroke of political genius, you expected that after you coupled up 13 political parties, then you will have a strong, but then you have, now what you have is just a huge book of regulations and a constitution that is largely unimplemented. So it's a dishonesty, it's a political dishonesty. And, by the way, we may be here cheering and saying, yes, our parties are able to be formed less than a year, a baby, which ends up becoming a ruling party. But it is deliberate, it's by design to make sure that we don't have strong institutions of accountability to party leaders, so that then they cannot be asked about their party manifestos, they cannot be asked about, what they are supposed to have done in government, but also it ends up destroying upcoming leaders and those people who are not supposed to use the same vehicle to get into power. You can say for sure that dismembering of Jubilee is to ensure that William Ruto does not use the same structure. And that is how then you end up with tribal, regional political parties vis-a-vis having a political party that has a national outlook. Look at Jubilee. If Jubilee had remained intact, it would have formed Sifuna and his allies to also make NASA a political party. What we are hearing is the SG of ODM here declaring that there are 2 funeral committees, one led by Moses Wetangula, and another one negotiating matrimonial property by Kalonzo Musyoka. I really want to say, without fear of doubt, that we as younger leaders are disgruntled, because the moment you differ with your political party, they actually incriminate you and change the narrative to mean that you are the one on the wrong. Look at Kivutha Kibwana. Kivutha Kibwana, made an MOU with WIPA from Muungano to join there. He was even given the chairmanship. Now, he's supposed to appear in a disciplinary committee because he has declared his candidature for the presidency. That is a hate of intolerance that you find in political parties. In fact, even I would want to challenge Edwin Sifuna here. Jimmy Wanjigi is just jigging, he's jigging there. He's pretending like he can come into somebody's house and occupy the master's bedroom. He can only be in the servant's quarter or at best at the city.
All right, Ezra, quite some heavy words that you put down there. But Nelson, as you look at what's going on, I asked him a question, he didn't respond, and I'm asking about Jeremiah Kioni, the Member of Parliament for Ndaragwa, said that no single party that has been, or any political formation has been formed a year to the election that has gone ahead to win the election. He was saying this targeting the UDA that has been pretty on the ground. When this hunting for alliances is over, what do you see happening a few weeks or months to the election?
It's truly political bad manners for parties to be formed purely because you want power and to win an election. And that has been the trend in this country for very long, because it's not about manifesto, it's not about ideas, it's not about agenda, it's about getting into power. And immediately you get into power, they start scheming for the next general election, depending on what is going to happen, circumstances as will be at that time. Look at Jubilee, like Honorable Maura did say. I mean, this was a huge party that we expected. We had a lot of aspirations. Personally, as a young person, I campaigned for Jubilee. I campaigned on Jubilee platform. I saw Jubilee's manifesto. But for the last 3 years, I can't today recount what I have achieved on what I promised the people of Belgood, for instance, from Jubilee. It has been fights. I've been de-whipped from committees that I was in. I've been put in some shelf in the National Assembly, some in consequential committees that has no meaningful input like I would have expected.
But there are still committees of the House.
My party to have given me. No, I was in a very powerful committee of defense. There was so much that was going on that I know in this country. I'm now in some sports. We actually about, from one community, we are 11 members in sports committee. We can actually have our meeting in Kalenjin language if we decided today, for instance. I mean, look at that. And this is a party that we campaigned for. The people now who have taken leadership in our House committee are people from who have been sent by Honorable Sifuna's party. Gladys Wanga is now the chair of finance. My neighbor in Kericho County from Kipkelion East, Honorable Joseph Limo, a very, very serious economist and financial officer, is being relegated into some backbench in Parliament, and ODM has taken over serious positions.
Well, I understand that. Isn't it just fine, bearing in mind that all these people are members of Parliament and the House of Parliament is supposed to oversight the government?
I agree, but there was an unwritten rule that, you know, when you come in from the ruling party, you were to occupy serious positions in government. It is there, especially in our committees in Parliament. That's why we have the leader of majority, and we have serious committees being taken over, because what we are selling and what we are implementing is a manifesto of Jubilee. We are not implementing a NASA's manifesto. So when you have Gladys Wanga sitting to preside over a Jubilee manifesto, isn't that a conflict?
Honorable Governor, you don't sit in Parliament, but you once did.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think about what has happened to Parliament. Of course, is it whipping or the whipping of the members of Parliament, especially from the Jubilee Party? And the second part of that question, we saw Amos Kimunya saying that come 2022, they are willing to work with the ODM. Maina Kamanda actually said that we just need 40% of the vote in central Kenya to ensure that the team of Raila and Joho can ascend to power. Is that the thinking from your corner of politics? Okay,
first, I think it would not be appropriate for me just to look at politics from the basis of Jubilee. I think it's good to look at it broader than that. And also to confirm, for example, when you say that no party has been formed earlier than 1 year to election that has won, it is true, but it is also anchored in the Constitution. Because nobody can win the 24 counties easily. So you have to talk and talk and talk and talk and finally agree. You will remember in the run-up to the 2008 election, having won under NAC, everybody thought NAC Kenya, which was a party that had emerged and won a few by-elections, would be the party to go with in the year 2007. It was actually PNU, because you realize you cannot win alone. So you need all these people to come together, and the conversations must be there. So you cannot start discussing 3 or 4 years before. So these conversations start on or around now. And therefore, the final outfit that comes will naturally come way into the year before the election. So it is true. So even if we want to deny that reality, I can assure you that no single party can win. And therefore, whatever we see, whatever formations we have here, is just a warm-up to whatever other alliances that will come as we move forward. And I think at this stage, it will be extremely unwise to rule out anything. Because even though at the face of it, it may be A and B or B and C, these conversations about what is possible. And the threshold for winning are so high that even if you hate somebody, you'll find yourself working with them. So you'll find some of the big candidates saying that, I can never be this, I can never work with this person. Yes, but you can't win alone. So we are forced into those sort of conversations. Then secondly, on the issue of Parliament, I think if you're, say, a chairman of the Defense Committee and you openly criticize the very president that you represent, because Parliament is about achieving that manifesto. And politics is not necessarily about what party you're elected in, it is about the philosophy you believe in and that you support for that particular matter. And I also want to confirm, even in our counties, the people who head those committees are those you believe will help you to achieve the manifesto, irrespective of whatever party they come from. So I think once there's any disagreement, I don't see how you can have somebody heading a very critical committee and you don't trust them. Even my own driver or my bodyguard must be somebody I trust. So I would want somebody to tell me how you politically disagree with somebody, then entrust them to run your budget, and trust them to run your defense, and trust them to run all your other resources. So it is not feasible that that would happen. Then lastly also is to confirm that the conversations that we're having now, if you are to reflect and go back, say, to 2016, 2017, we're exactly where we were 13 months to election. 13 months to election. The Jubilee Party was not there. It came 9 months to the election. So this was a time of conversation. And even at that time, we were never sure who would be with who eventually. So I think it's good to confirm that. And this is not like a 2017 election where you had a president who was continuing. And I think this is also part of the reason why you find in central Kenya, there's a bit of a challenge because this is a region that has always had a presidential candidate. Not just a presidential candidate, but one, at any one time, who had very strong chances of winning, from the Matiba days to the Kibaki days to the Uhuru Kenyatta days. And so when they're in a situation where that is not very, where that's not very clear, then they are not used to that kind of terrain. But in the next few months, I'm sure some of those things will be clarified. And as we all know, the unit of analysis for politics in Kenya is these blocks, and they are there, and nobody can pretend they don't exist. And any election that has been won is a result of these blocks thinking together, ensuring the interests are there, and the people who represent them now become the face that now negotiates with the others.
All right, and we'll continue this conversation after the break as we get to listen to more leaders that have been speaking over the weekend. Do text in your views to 2422 or Twitters at Citizen TV Kenya. At Sam Gituku, the hashtag to use is DAYBREAK as we continue this conversation after the break.